Coalition, and welcome to July. We made it another month. I hope everyone had a good celebration, a long holiday weekend. That's great. Again, my name is Robert. I'm one of the leadership members. My daytime role is I work with Providence Community Clinic. We are on the corner of 2nd and Brown, and one of the things that I love to do is Providence has this kind of status quo. When you begin meetings, you start off with a reflection. And so I love kind of setting the tone of this meeting. There's a lot going on in the community, a lot of anxiety of the unknown, what's happening, changes that are happening, funds being used. There's just a lot of things that we just maybe need to have some peace with. There's so much happening. Providence's mission is to be expression of God's healing love, witnessed through the ministry of Jesus, steadfast in serving all, especially the poor and vulnerable. And I like to associate this mission with, I'm persuaded that there's circumstantial blueprints that we can glean out of this ministry. And one of those is about this guy named Peter, who followed this guy mentioned in Providence Mission. And he says, cast your anxiety on the big guy, God. He cares for you. He cares for you. Anxiety, moment of unrest, not knowing what's going to happen, anxiety. Cast your anxiety on him. He cares for you. He doesn't necessarily say he's going to fix the situation. No promises other than promising himself. We might see care is how can we improve my circumstances, my immediate wants, my immediate needs. For example, I can't help but think about when I was a kid. I would eat, if it was up to me, I'd eat Reese's Puff cereal for breakfast, lunch, and dinner with pizza. And I hated brushing my teeth. I just hated it. But my mom, she cared for me because she was with me. You see this guy I mentioned in Providence Mission, he promises himself, meaning a relationship. This guy doesn't promise peace or shalom as the world gives it. Shalom, peace, isn't a change in circumstance, but rather a state in which he is with us. To give you context during this time, before this guy ascends vertically into the clouds, he mentions my peace is a little bit different. And during this time, Rome occupied this area, and they would use torture, oppression, and bloodshed to get this peace. This man doesn't give peace by world power or government structure. He gives himself a relationship. He cares for you, just as we are all here because we care for our community. We care in developing those relationships as peace. So thank you again for, I know my reflections can get out there sometimes, so thank you for your listening ear. So we're going to go ahead and start with our July Coalition meeting. We have an awesome lineup. We are going to first start up with Miss Julie Garcia to give us some information, and this is a sitting venue. My long legs, it's just so hard to stand all the time. Okay, so what is going on at this place called Camp Hope?
So with Camp Hope, for the last 2 days, we have spent with volunteers doing assessments. We've assessed 455 individuals with 102 waiting to be assessed today. That's real trackable data with all of their information. These folks are putting themselves out there for help. So we have learned a lot from this population, and this will give us a snapshot. So I'm just gonna give you some preliminary data that we've learned. We haven't been able to enter it all into a system yet because we had to create a new system to put them in. Out of the 455 people that we assessed in the last 2 days, only 2%, not 2%, have their core documentation. meaning only 2 people out of that population have an ID and a social security card. That's the first thing where we can see that we need to address. The second thing is 100% of the people that we surveyed will use a pallet shelter, and 50% were willing to go to a shelter depending on who ran it. So this is some amazing data that we've never had on this population. We asked questions like previous interventions. Are you in the CMIS system? Are you willing to do substance abuse disorder treatment? Are you willing to do these things? And the answers were amazing. I wasn't prepared for the answers that we got from them because I didn't know that most of them, their barriers were all the same. Either they were some kind of criminal barrier from the past, or the simple basic things that we all need to get ahead: a job, an ID, a phone. They don't have any of those things. And we estimate from the assessments and the number of people that we counted, we're over 600 people on that one city block. Today we're doing an event out there where we're inviting service providers. So if you haven't got on board to go out there and talk with these folks, today would be your day. So it will run today and tomorrow from 10 to 4. And you're welcome to come out. There's tables, there's canopies, and meet the population that is out there, because us as service providers are somehow going to have to get these folks into our systems and into our caseloads and some real help. And right now you have the attention of 600 people. This can't be an opportunity that we miss or discard, because I don't know for how long this camp will maintain at the current rate that it's expanding. We started out with 68 people at Camp Hope and 600 people later.
And Julie, before in past conversations, you seem to be in a position to be a voice and an advocate for them, positioned in different community meetings and settings. But it sounds like there's like an internal leadership that is within camp. Can you talk about kind of that leadership inside of Camp Hope?
Yeah, so one thing that most people don't know is we don't staff Camp Hope. We don't have staff members that stay on site. There is an internal leadership of people who work together to maintain the camp. There's people that sign up every day to clean porta potties. There's people that sign up to do security. And is it perfect? No, it's just like any other population of 600 people on one block, but they're trying. And from this room of people who is service providers and knows this population, this is more than we've ever seen the chronically homeless population do collectively together. So they make their own rules. We have a security meeting with them every Sunday. We are there every day to help and support them, but they're doing this on their own.
What are some of the rules that do they hold themselves accountable or keep each other accountable for the rules? Maybe talk a little bit about that.
So they police themselves, and they have maybe 4 basic rules. One is, we understand there are folks there that are using. Please don't do that in the open. If you do, they ask them to leave. If they create violence, we ask them to leave. If they steal from each other or the neighbors, they're asked to leave. And we're all about second chances. So if you're gonna come back tomorrow and try again, then we come back tomorrow and try again. We've learned a lot of things from watching this camp. And one thing that we do know is there's a lot of people that prey upon people experiencing homelessness.
And what about, I know there's a lot of media around the activity around the outside of Camp Hope. What is there is there a pulse or a temperature that you can gauge of what's happening around? Is that due to those who are preying upon those staying at Camp Hope?
So there's 600 people on that city block, and that's the city block that they focus on. There's tents and campers outside of that city block on those other 6 lots that are around there. I don't know if you can see from that picture, but there's 6 other lots adjacent to this lot. And those folks are not in the camp because there's simply no more room. We don't have any more room to put a tent or an RV, and we don't police that outside area. So there's probably another 200 or 300 people that live in that neighborhood and have lived in that neighborhood for a long time.
And are there individuals in there who would prefer to be, that you've encountered, that would prefer to be in a shelter, or maybe thrive in more of a larger setting, that rather than being in this block radius with so many people?
I think everyone there would prefer something different, but the something different has been given and taken away from them time and time and time again. So they've lost trust in the system, they've lost trust in the providers, they've lost trust in the city as a whole. And that's what this event today is for. It's building trust, because what we asked of them in the last 2 days was, I understand that you guys do not trust. Could you put yourself out there one more time? Could you give us your information one more time? Because this is the 4th assessment people experiencing homelessness have had since the beginning of the year. And those assessments are traumatic. They're reliving all of their past and issues. So we tried to make it as less traumatic as possible with 10 easy questions. But it did force them to decide if they wanted to put themselves out there yet again. And they did. We only had 22 anonymous out of all of those.
And what's Jules Helping Hands' role within this community?
We advocate for people experiencing homelessness. We walk people experiencing homelessness through homelessness, and we refer to the folks that can help farther. We don't do counseling, we don't do drug treatment, we don't do housing. We just refer to people who do those things. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're trying to be that provider that's in between, because at this point, those folks trust us. And if we give them a referral to go, say, to CAT, they trust that we have their best interest at heart.
Any, I guess, stigmas or anything out there, misconceptions that maybe need clarity around the camp itself? It seems like there's a lot of people in there, but also a lot of autonomy in there. I've seen fences, little parameters around, someone's RV, or, they take pride in ownership of their space. So what are maybe some, sorry, I get lost in the picture here. What are some maybe areas that maybe need some clarity or further explanation on?
So 100% of them answered one question the same. What's the most important thing to you? Autonomy. How valuable is your door when you guys go home at night to shut? That was the one question that every single person there answered the same. We want a door to shut. That's it. Nobody prefers to live in a tent at the side of a freeway, and I can tell you, doing those assessments and going into those tents, it's probably 150 degrees in each one of those tents. It is not an ideal situation. It is not what they want. It's what they're forced to have, to be able to have that autonomy, to be able to have a door to shut. And they're willing to work hard for it, because to most people, you see a lot of trash. Well, there's 600 people on one lot, and we have 3 dumpsters. So everything is disposable there. But every day, there's a group of folks out cleaning that area. Is it perfect? No, there's a lot of people there. But for the most part, every single person in that camp is asking for assistance and willing to participate yet again.
And last question, I guess comes from I just kind of wanting to get your understanding of what this statement means to you. We make it easy to be homeless. What does that mean?
There's absolutely nothing easy about being homeless. Absolutely nothing. If you think that living with 600 other people in 100-degree weather, in a tent, with whatever food the community decides to drop off that day, and with the fear that every single time you walk off of that lot, your things are going to be gone, there is nothing easy about that. They're trying, and we as a community need to walk alongside them, because if they're willing at this point to give 100%, we need to give 100% to help them out of this situation. It is not easy to be homeless. You are preyed upon from the moment you become homeless to the moment that you get out of this. And then we are supposed to, after you get out of homelessness, deal with the trauma of everything that happened in between. The average time that these folks collectively together have been homeless is 3 years. 3 years in our city, we have not managed to find a way to help these guys. We have people there that have been homeless for 30 plus years. And this is every dynamic of the population. The only folks that aren't there are children, but we have veterans, we have women, we have the LGBTQ community. We have so many different populations of people, all with the same need. We need help.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Julia. I know you got a couple days of a lot going on, so I'll let you. Oh, looks like we have a question here up front. So the question was, with the new proposed ordinance, how many people could take in Camp Hope if that passes?
So we cannot take any more people experiencing homelessness. We have 8 RVs lined up to come onto that lot anytime there's an opening. And in doing these assessments, there's 5 and 6 people per tent. I did 3 assessments yesterday in a row of 3 separate tents and did 24 assessments between those 3 tents. There is no more room for these folks on that one lot of land. And the folks at Camp Hope are trying to adhere to the rules of the Washington State Department of Transportation, which is, can we keep everybody on that one lot? So we're not expanding it into the other lots. If people move into that lot, we can't protect them from being enforced upon. And they're still getting tickets and their stuff removed every day.
Any other questions out in the field? Oh, right here.
Do you do any surveys or anything to find out why they are there? Are people there because they've been evicted or because their rent has gone too high? Is there any way you can get data from that?
Question is there any survey that is utilized at Camp Hope to determine why they're there and experiencing what they're experiencing?
So yes, we've started this assessment process, and that is one of the questions: is how long have you been homeless? Why do you believe you're homeless? And in your words, what are your barriers to becoming homeless? This data is a lot more than we ever expected to have. So we've had to create a whole new system to input it into. So we're hoping, and our goal is by the end of next week, that we'll have that data available to the public. We won't be giving out names, dates of birth, but we'll be able to generate reports. So everybody who does those surveys has answered those questions. And I think that will give the city and the providers a snapshot of the population that we're trying to serve.
Right up here, question.
Julie asked me if I wanted to come up with her, and I said no. I'm going to steal your mic for just a minute.
Wait.
As some of you may be aware, I'm building a documentary on Camp Hope. And one of the people that I interviewed is a lady named Gina. And I'll be filming her again this afternoon down at the camp. She didn't want her face shown, but she's going to let me film walking behind her. So you'll see she's a real person. She's dying of terminal cancer. And her closing statement was, "I'm going to die here, and I'm okay with that, because I have nothing to look forward to." Welcome to Camp Hope.
Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you so much, Julie, for your time and what you do in our community. I know it's much appreciated. So thank you very much. All right. So next up, we have a good panel discussion. And if you do have questions for Julie, please catch her. I know she has to head out here. But we will go ahead and bring up our panel discussion members. If you guys can come on up, Lori, Brianne, and Alex. We will go ahead and have you guys up here just for a little conversation about what is happening in our community. Come on up. Lori feels safe. I don't know about Brianne. Yeah. Here you go. I'll give you this one.
Alex is going first. Oh, I'll go here. Okay, but you're going to talk first. Am I? You are.
All right. Yes. So, Alex. So there's a lot of buzz happening in the community about commerce funds and what that looks like and what it's used for. Can you kind of give us, a background of how this all developed? And then secondly, kind of what are the immediate steps and then potential next steps after that?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. Alex Scott. I'm a Special Assistant for Federal Policy to the Director Lisa Brown at the Department of Commerce. Quickly, just by way of background, because there's lots of people here that I don't know, I've lived in Spokane for about 10 years, went to law school at Gonzaga. Since then, I've worked for Spokane City Council, for a variety of different Democratic campaigns, and then for Senator Maria Cantwell as her Eastern Washington Director. And I've been with Commerce for a little over a year now in my current role. So to answer your question, Robert, the sense of urgency from WashDOT and from Washington State Patrol around rights of way has been building for quite some time. And around the start of this year, they did a statewide assessment and they identified 11 priority sites spread across 5 counties. And the legislature, those 2 state agencies then worked with the legislature to dedicate some specific proviso funding for those 11 sites. So Spokane County is one of the 5 counties, and Camp Hope is our one site, one of the 11 sites statewide. So what Commerce then did, because Commerce was tasked with delivering the funding, Commerce's Housing Trust Fund team and Housing Action teams said, how can we take that proviso money, which is super helpful, but how can we exponentially increase its impact? So what they did is they took several different rounds of kind of usual housing funding, things like rapid capital acquisition, other things, and said we're going to suspend the usual statewide procurement process on those for this round, and we're going to dedicate all of those funds to these same 11 sites across these same 5 counties as well. So the situation we're in now is we've got a little more than $24 million earmarked for Spokane, dedicated to, the first priority of that funding is folks that are in Camp Hope. The funding can be used for more folks should the money get that far, but the first priority is folks that are there. And we have a 30-day clock. It ends July 21 of this month. And if the county and the city of Spokane are not able to put forth a proposal that is agreeable to our team at Commerce, then we are free to contract directly with providers. So that's the current status. Did that lay the groundwork?
Yes, and so I guess, so then it's up to, what you're saying is it's up to the city or administration and city council to kind of develop a collaborative proposal to submit to you or Ted or whoever within Commerce to see how those funds are dispersed into community organizations that are selected to be a part of that proposal, or is it just one organization?
No, I mean, the reason that Commerce went this way is a couple of different things. First of all, the way that a lot of the other pots of funding are set up legally, counties have a first right of refusal. And so that's part of why we wanted to go this route. But the other part is that across these 5 counties and the 11 sites within them, we know that there have to be agreeable local solutions. We know that every situation is different. We know that every community's housing supply and capacity and provider sort of network is different. So that's really why our first priority is making sure that communities are able to lead this, but they have to do it quickly. They have to come up with a plan quickly. So that's why we did the 30 days. So it can be as many providers as the county and the city want to bring to the table. The agreements, I'm sure, will end up looking very different statewide.
And when's the deadline?
July 21.
And being that it's July 7th, Councilmember Kinnear.
Well, and sorry, real quick.
Oh,
just,
okay.
just
Sorry.
So we don't.
Scared me.
So the RFP went out on June 21, so full 30 days. But we were engaged in conversations with lots of different folks, providers, city, county, county commissioners, well before that even. So we did give, statewide, we tried to give communities an opportunity to comment on the RFP as it was being developed. And so I think it's been more than generous. But yes, the deadline is fast approaching.
And what's Commerce kind of, or your experience like with our community's crisis regarding homelessness and housing insecurity? What does that look like? Is there any background associated with that?
Well, absolutely there is. I think one of the real strengths of having Commerce distribute this funding is that Commerce's housing team is intimately familiar with most of what has gone on over the past few decades in housing in this community and statewide. I mean, Commerce has helped fund dozens of different types of projects, from temporary shelter to permanent supportive housing to housing of all types. So we're really doing our best to make sure that this burst of funding and the capacity that is built with it really is being viewed in a holistic sense and is really contributing long-term to the community's capacity. So I think it's been a good working relationship for a long time, and there's no reason to think that it can't continue to be really good going forward.
Yes. Councilmember Kinnear, as far as this deadline is approaching, where are we at with kind of this collaborative, I guess, between the administration and city council to collect all these? Who basically takes point of that, of this proposal that goes back to Commerce?
So just.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Oh, there we go. Thank you. All right, just to be clear, Alex is right. Commerce has been more than generous. We have been working on this for years as a council and trying to come up with solutions. And instead of being holistic, as Alex is advocating, we haven't been. We've been piecemeal. So what we're doing now is we have a new housing person, a policy person, Megan, wave it to us, that has just hit the ground running. She's come up with a plan. We presented it to the administration, and there are some sticking points on it. So council members want that holistic vision. We want to make sure that we have alternatives to shelter, the traditional trench shelter space. They're pallet homes, places for RVs, land where people can, if they want to camp, can camp, making sure that everybody is assessed, making sure that we have services available for people. And that is where we're going to have to push as a council to make sure that we get those things in place. Because without that, we're not going to be successful. And you heard Julie Garcia talk about the challenges, and those are the challenges that we have to meet head on. We can no longer say, you know, we make it easy to be homeless, or compassionate accountability. That's just not, we're done with that. We need to move forward, real solutions that will, as Alex said again, get people to a better place and a more permanent place, not the revolving door, not moving people around from place to place. So, okay, here come the police, kick them out of downtown. Where do they go? Somewhere else until they get kicked out of there. We need a comprehensive solution. I feel we're this close to getting there. 15 days isn't a lot of time. I think we can do it. And I am determined, after I and Council President Karen Stratton, Councilmember Stratton, went to Camp Hope last week. And we talked with people, we visited, we saw firsthand what Julie was talking about. And it was heart-wrenching. I can tell you I did not sleep that night. And I was very determined to make it a priority that we fix this. Not move it around, not pass ordinances that are going to move people around, but fix it. So I'd like to hear from Council President, because I could go on, but I'd like to hear more.
Yes, and please add to, but also what, if you were to put like a percentage on it, what's the level of confidence you have? Because it just kind of seems like there's, the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing in this situation. So how confident are you that this proposal collectively between the administration and city council can make it to that 21st state? And then you can also add to.
So I don't think it's a matter of us not knowing what each side is doing, but there is a lack of alignment. So, and you can see that yesterday at a press conference, the mayor called and didn't invite us to announce that she had negotiated a compromise with us on a camping ordinance, but we'd never seen it, never heard from her. And that shows you that there's a lot of politics going on out there, and people are using this issue and the backs of people who are already suffering to try to score points for some other agenda that they have. So there are some real challenges. The short answer, I'll tell you what's in my brain, is that the odds of us coming up with a plan for the $24 million jointly and agreeable and getting it to Commerce, pretty low, okay, pretty low. But that said, I think we will come up with some components of the plan that are agreeable that we will submit to Commerce. The one piece that we have major agreement on so far is purchasing 88-bed hotel and repurposing that potentially, and that's a big chunk of money of it, and it would make a difference for a lot of people. It wouldn't house 500 or 600 people, but everything that we can do, and my approach is, I hope the approach that many of you had. I started out in social work with high school dropout youth and people unemployed and getting them employment back in the 80s in Spokane, and I carried it through as being a lawyer, often representing your clients. And so I have the vision of where we need to get, and I have the compassion with people on the way, but every victory we can get, every person that we can house, every person that we can help, that's what we need to do. So I am not discouraged by it, but I also want people to be realistic. But there's some things I'd like to add about my understanding of the commerce money from talking to Alex and others that's really important, and I'm really excited about, but is also one of the push points between the administration and council. So one of the things is when we come up with a plan, we have to demonstrate a couple of things. One, and I believe the number is that 50% of the people that we're trying to rehouse, it has to be close to permanent housing. So this isn't just move people from Camp Hope into shelters 100%. That can't be the plan. If that was the plan, just to open up a giant shelter, they would not fund it. So I'm really glad they put that guardrail on it. so that when we're talking to the administration, we could say, no, this has to be more regular housing, not just another shelter. The other thing, and this is the critical piece, the housing choices and options that we come up with, they have to be options that the people at Camp Hope would choose. That's the thing. It is not, we're going to give the city $24 million to build a giant shelter, and then when people don't go there, then people can be arrested and thrown in jail. That is not the plan. They will not give us money to do that. And that's a really important guardrail, and I keep coming back to the administration and saying, okay, we have to do things that people will want to do. And it was really great to hear Julie's feedback on the assessments that they've done. And it lined up with what we learned from people in real time at Camp Hope last week, which is they would love to move from Camp Hope to a better situation, whether it be pallet housing, whether it be safe parking sites, even some shelters, hotel rooms, all those things. They are up for doing that if you could do a couple of things. One, give them some certainty that they'll get to stay there. They don't want to give up where they have for no certainty. And secondly, you heard from Julie, that most important thing is security for their items and property and themselves. That whether it's a door or a locker or whatever it is, the intervention. That was crystal clear, and I had heard that before, but when I'm listening to a woman explain to me that she is being sexually assaulted in her tent at Camp Hope because people come from outside and she has no protection and there's no security, there's no fencing, she needs a safe place, and everybody frankly needs a safe place to sleep and a safe place to store their possessions, which are so small but so precious to them. And that just has to be there. And so, you know, I knew that before and I'd said that before, but I know it at a deeper level, and we're going to communicate that with the administration. So what we're doing right now is Megan has really helped us. We've come up with an outline of a plan from soup to nuts, from the assessments to all the different interventions, safe parking places, pallet shelter places, improving the existing shelters that are out there. Sure, trench shelter is going to be a solution for some people if you change it, if you create privacy there, if you create storage lockers there, but it won't be for all. So we have to come up with a plan that will address all those people. And I threw in an idea, and the downtown business people are losing their minds over it. I said, well, maybe we give someone some incentives. If they agree to go leave Camp Hope, so they have to leave, go to one of these new housing options that we have, you give them some short-term incentives so that they will do it and try it out and see what it's like. But everything's on the table. But here's the other thing that I would say. $24 million, let's just call it $25 million for over 500 people. That's about $50,000 per person. And if we could figure out how to get permanent housing for people at $50,000 per unit for the actual building of it and the staffing of it, you know, we would have housing solved. So even the $25 million, as amazing as it is and as welcome as it is probably not going to get us there, but it's going to get us so much closer. And the final guardrail that Commerce has put on this that I'm most excited about is that if the city and the county and the mayor and the council, you know, if we don't reach agreement on just the overall plan that we're trying to propose and only do part of it, Commerce is going ahead and they're meeting with people individually and they're developing their own agreements with people, and they're going to go ahead and do what's right. And we will share with them the plan that council comes up with that we think is the soup to nuts plan. And if we had some of the funding, like Zeke's Empire Health Foundation came up with and said, spend all this money, like if we had all that money to do it, we could fund that plan and do that. So that's important because I think for the first time, we're going to be able to say in a unified fashion, this is what it's going to take operationally, this is what it's going to take funding, and then we can try to make it happen. And our commitment, I speak for Lori and myself, and I'm sure Karen, and I'm going to speak for Betsy and Zach without having spoken to them recently about it, but our commitment is getting the plan, figuring out the funding, and if we don't have the funding, moving towards it, and holding the vision of where we need to go. Because in Spokane, we on the council believe that everybody belongs. They all belong. They're all part of this community, no matter what their situation is. And if we can make it concrete and crystal, the odds of us getting there, it might not be in the next 15 days. But the odds of us getting there are great. And the more people we get into housing, the better. So the last thing I just wanted to say is I wanted to thank all of you for all the work that you do and all the compassion and the vision. And I'm happy to have you call us out regularly as a city, even if city council is only part of it and not really in charge of operations. Happy to have you keep calling us out. Please do speak your truth, because there are plenty of other people speaking their truth to us, and I think you would disagree with their version of the truth. And the last thing that I just wanted to say, I meant to say it, but it just popped back into my
You're
head.
past 3 minutes,
The
Councilmember.
last thing, and this is the thing I want you to understand about Laura and my job. We are translators for the greater community that do not understand what's going on. They do not have the relationships and the knowledge on the ground that you have. Our job is to try to communicate with those people to understand your truth. Very challenging in this environment, but know that that is what we do. So anytime you can give us ammunition and help with that, that's helpful. I'll stop.
Okay, I just need to say one really quick thing, because I didn't take all my 3 minutes.
Okay,
Just
okay,
saying.
okay.
So I spoke with Hallie prior to us starting this, and she was saying, assessments are really important. If Camp Hope is broken up and there's no place that people can actually go where we can have access to them, they're scattered to the four winds. We're not going to be able to help them without a lot more resources. We're going to have to find people. And in some cases, we're not even going to be able to get to them because they are going to be so deep in the woods that they're not going to be accessible. It's imperative. We have this opportunity with the people who are currently at Camp Hope to access them and offer them the help they need or the help they want and not have them scatter, because then our job becomes much more difficult. So thank you for saying that. It seems obvious, but until you articulated that, I went, of course. So we need to take advantage of the situation we have now and make sure that we have access.
And we'll get to Q&A in 1 second. I just want to have another open time for Alex here. So if it goes past this 21st date, what is the mindset basically from your perspective of commerce, of next steps? Like, how do you weigh the plans out there? Because city council will have their plan, administration has their plan, the COC has their plan, Empire Health has their plan. How do you glean out the I guess the tools needed to address this situation?
Well, I mean, I think that we have all of the ideas and all of the solutions that we need. I think that the community has put those forward. We've seen plans from Julie Garcia. She and I speak regularly. We have seen some draft ideas from the city council, and I'm sure that we'll see the final version whenever that's ready. I've tried to work closely with Zeke and the table that he convened around those recommendations. So I can't say for sure what happens after the 21st, because we really are negotiating it, or negotiations haven't actually started because we haven't gotten anything from Spokane County or the city officially. But we're going to do our best to negotiate in good faith until the 21st. So I want to be clear, nobody at Commerce is negotiating what happens after that yet, but we are at this point just listening to everyone in the community that is free to send us things. The RFP was public. It went to the 5 counties and the cities within them, but the RFP is public. So any of you that have proposals or ideas that you'd like to pass along, please do that. We certainly have had those start to trickle in. So what happens after the 21st, I can't say for sure. I will say that it is my number one priority that we don't lose the funds, that we still get those funds here in Spokane. And at that point, it'll just be a scramble drill, I think, trying to identify providers, line up some of the ideas that we've already started receiving, and just start funding them.
And we have time for just a couple questions. Sorry.
Well, so
And can you repeat the?
yeah, so the question was around what does permanent housing actually mean when it comes to the RFP? Yeah. Yeah. So, so the actual language of the RFP is that no more than 50% of the funding can be used for temporary housing, for the construction or acquisition or set aside of temporary solutions. So we view those as day shelters, respite, those kinds of things. And the permanent options that we're trying to prioritize are going to be permanent supportive housing, PSH in like a pallet environment. I mean, it can look all sorts of different ways, but the point is the overriding policy goal that is trying to get at is we're trying to build community capacity for the long term, not just move people into some place for 6 months or a year and then it goes away. Again, it depends what the plan looks like from the local. I mean, I can't give you any specific examples because all of this is ongoing, but in some of the other counties around the state, there are pallet home solutions being floated as part of this, and it just depends. In some cases, those are viewed as temporary in the scope of their plan, but then there's like a contingent, we're gonna move to constructing tiny homes on that same location or something that's more permanent. I know it's not a very satisfactory answer, but the point from our perspective is we're trying to be as flexible as possible. We want the community to tell us how they'll make it work. And then, the team has done this for a lot of years. So if it doesn't make sense, or if we're hearing from other folks in the community that, no, the folks in the camp won't accept that, or that's, a provider that's not trusted or whatever, like we're gonna listen to those things and say, that's not a good faith offer. Does that help?
Thank you, and I'm so sorry, but we do have to get on to our next presenter, but I'm sure they'll be around here just for a little bit longer before they have to head out. So if you do have questions, please reach out to Councilmember and Alex. So thank you guys so much for taking the time and being with us. Welcome back, and welcome the first time. Thank you very much. Okay, Zeke, you are up, my man. You have the mic. Talking about what's been happening with Empire Health. Welcome. And I was giving Zeke a hard time that he didn't wear his white Sambas. He actually has white Sambas like me.
It's true. What size are yours?
14.
Oh,
Do we wear the same size?
13.
Oh, okay. Well,
So I tried, if I would have known that Robert was the moderator, facilitator, I mean, I tried with my hair, but his is a little longer. He's a little younger, so it's a little fuller.
yes.
I can't do the beard thing in the same way.
No.
And I wasn't ready to do my top button, but I like that look.
Thanks.
Yeah.
What a guy. Okay, Zeke,
Yes.
what's been going on with Empire Health Foundation? I know a lot of us have been kind of in the community, have been a part of some collaborative meetings happening. And last Monday, can you kind of talk about the proposal that was submitted with as a result of those meetings?
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. My name's Zeke Smith. I'm the president of the Empire Health Foundation. I've been there for a little under 2 years. And just a quick intro to get to the recommendations. Many of you might not know who the Empire Health Foundation is, and that wouldn't be a surprise because we haven't actually been that involved or engaged in working on and alongside of the homeless services and organizations. So in January, we had a couple of folks who came to me and said, we've got real issues. We need a private foundation like the Empire Health Foundation not to sit on the sidelines, but to be a part of the solution. And we think that even though there are a lot of places where conversations are happening about what needs to happen to address the crisis that we've got in our community, we need a different way to think about this. We need a different opportunity for people to get together and move from conversation to action. And so I took that to heart. I think that we've been in this community for about 12 years. We are the largest private foundation in Spokane and in the Inland Northwest, and Homelessness at this point is a crisis, not just in Spokane, but across a lot of the communities here in Inland Northwest and broadly. And so talked to a whole bunch of folks, service providers and others, and tried to figure out what is it that we could actually do that might be helpful, and ultimately decided to invite folks to a conversation or a set of conversations where we might assume that our local leadership would like to get some input about how to use resources to address the homelessness issues that we have in our community. And specifically honed in on the fact that there's $208 million that our local municipalities have from the American Rescue Plan. And there's a lot of parameters around how you can and can't use those dollars, but they're also still pretty wide open. And many communities around the country are using those resources specifically to address and to work on the issues that they've got around homelessness. And so we thought, let's give some advice on how you might prioritize using some of those resources effectively to address some of the issues. Pulled together a bunch of folks. We had in total almost 40 individuals, many who are in this room, to have some conversations. We specifically asked elected officials not to be in that room. And the point of that was we wanted to try to take some of the politics away from the conversation and create a space where people could have some real conversations. There were service providers there. There were business community leaders there, folks from Hello for Good, which, I know that there's often differences of perspective in terms of both what it is that we need to address, but also how to do it. And the idea was, let's get folks together in a room and have some real conversations and see if we can't come up with some ideas together. So collectively, over a period of a couple of months, 6 meetings, people showed up on Wednesdays from 5 to 7 outside of most people's work days. And we came up with a list of 5 service areas to address. In other words, kind of 5 priority areas in the context of an integrated and comprehensive plan. So along the lines of what you heard before in terms of a holistic approach, both in terms of what Commerce is looking for, but also what the City Council is really pushing for, that this isn't about one particular approach, and there isn't a single solution, which I think we all know, but rather how do we actually build a more integrated system and use this moment in time, because we have more resource. Money is not the problem in the same way that it always has been at other points. So if money's not the problem, it helps us, I think, to identify what really is. So we came up with this list. Ultimately, in it, we made recommendations that $65 million of ARPA funds from city, county, city of Spokane Valley be used to support immediate solutions and opportunities to address some of the issues. That was things from outreach service, increasing and expanding what's available there, coordinating training to pallet homes and other kinds of potentially temporary or less long-term solutions, but also it incorporated a plan for 1,000 new units of permanent supportive housing that many of the bigger housing providers in town were working together on, to a data system that allows for a different level of engagement and a different understanding of who's homeless, what their needs are, and who's actually engaging with those folks. So $65 million was the request in ARPA fundings or recommendations. And then we also, while we were doing this, the Commerce money became visible and available. And so we took advantage of the fact that we had a whole bunch of great experts in the room and said, well, let's come up with some ideas for the city and for Commerce and for the county as well about how to use that additional $25 million. It was a pretty interesting process. I mean, you can speak to it as well, Robert. I think there were a number of different folks in the room. And the hope at this point is that that actually is really useful to the city council, to the administration, to the county. I know Spokane Valley actually has used $4 million of their $16 million in ARPA funds to support purchasing land acquisition in order to do affordable housing and mental health facilities. So we also want to be able to support our local electeds when they're making good decisions, even when we might not have expected them to. I think that part of what we're trying to do now is say, how can we really put the right kind of support that also looks like pressure on to our leaders, our elected leaders, to think not just about the commerce money. Absolutely, we want to get that right. This is a great opportunity for us, but there's a whole bunch of other resource there that they have at their disposal. And I think we want people to recognize what I know that many of you do, so I won't belabor it, but this is a crisis. And it's a crisis that is at least about 550 individuals, and as we all know, it's actually about a lot more than that. And it is a crisis of our making, and that we allow to continue as long as we don't take action. So my hope is that what we heard today is actually really shared from a lot of our elected leaders, and that we can really support them to make some good decisions. That's what we're trying to do.
And what are the outcomes basically? So you submitted this on Monday on how these ARPA funds and even the washed out commerce funds can be utilized. So are those basically just guidelines that you're providing the administration and city council to follow on how the funds should be dispersed? Is it still, and then it goes from city council or basically the city to put out RFPs specifically for those categories? Is that how it works?
Yeah, it's a great question. So one, I'd say, I was going to bring copies, but I didn't know how many people, and I don't want to waste paper. So I can, I'll send an email to you all with that the actual recommendations for those of you who haven't seen it. Two, it's not a plan. So I appreciate the call out in the last panel. But it's not a plan in and of itself. It's a set of recommendations, and it's really a guide, as you said, Robert, to say here are the kinds of services that you should be prioritizing and that have an urgency if we really want to address these issues. But how you do that, you know, gets back into a sausage making process in some ways in each of the different jurisdictions. So I think, you know, Megan and I have had some really great conversations. I think there's some great work happening at the city in terms of how you take that information and then turn it into really a set of opportunities, which I do think looks like RFPs. As you know, some places are a little bit more specific and some are less specific. And part of that is about how we built in existing work that people were doing. So this plan, of the 65 million, 35 million of that was in the recommendations. The suggestion was should go to support gap funding for permanent supportive housing for 1,000 total units. And what they mean by gap funding there is we can access a whole bunch of other resources from other places to build permanent supportive housing, but we've got to have a local match, a local portion of that we can pay for. So let's use these resources to do it. If we can do that, we have the capacity to be able to build 1,000 new units. That's really specific, and it's really clear, and it even ultimately identifies a set of providers who are in a position to do that work. City's still got to go through their process of figuring that out, but it's really clear. Another area was mental health services. And we had a lot of conversation about this area. One, it's a lot less specific because there's a broader conversation and a broader set of work that has to be done to really get at what it takes to identify what's missing and what the gaps are, not just in terms of mental health services for our homeless population, but in mental health services as a whole. And two, there's not necessarily agreement across even the folks that are working in that space, as you know, to be able to figure out what comes next. So what we did is we said, okay, how can we give some good guidance to say you have to invest in mental health services as a part of what it looks like to have a comprehensive and integrated plan to address homelessness. But there's still work to be done to figure out what that looks like. So you got to get the right folks in the room, which frankly I think is probably a number of folks that are in here. It's folks like you, Robert, who can sit down and say, here's what's working now, here's what's not working, here's where we got gaps that are funding based, and here's where we have gaps that are service or quality based that we need to do something different around. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag, and part of that is if we were to walk into to the city, the county, or otherwise and say, here's a full plan, just make it happen, they're not going to take it because they're going to want to do their own work in some ways. And part of that is we wanted to ensure that we could have a collaborative conversation together. And if we turned around and said, okay, so which of you are going to do what in terms of mental health, and we have to keep it within a certain amount of money, all of a sudden it becomes a competitive conversation, not a collaborative conversation. So we tried to say, can we actually, and I think this is important, part of what we wanted to do together, I think this is a commitment we all had, this isn't just Empire Health Foundation, was, can we actually create a collaborative space where we can have real conversations about the issues and the opportunities and figure out how to create some opportunity to move forward? Because there's not enough of that. It happens, I think, a lot amongst providers, but not in a way that is translatable into to how you actually get access to resources and what the system looks like. So we wanted to create a space to say, can we do that? And I think we did. And at this point, now we're trying to say, how do we keep folks together so that, frankly, we can have folks from the business community saying, yeah, we need an integrated and comprehensive plan. It's not just about a set of ordinance. And that we've got folks from service providers and advocates and others.
Yes, it was very helpful, holistic approach of being a part of that process. I want to leave some time for some questions, if there are any questions out there for Zeke and kind of the process we went through. Any questions? Oh, right back here. So the question was concerns about moving, an announcement on the media that moving people from Camp Hope on August 1st. And I think that would be more of a question for probably to send out to the city council members and talking about those concerns. But I don't think, do you have a plan?
Well, do I have a plan?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, okay. I don't want to speak for you.
No. But I do want to say, one, there is a lot of pressure currently on our elected officials to do something from different vantage points. And frankly, that's a really good thing. It's important and it's right that there's pressure and that pressure continues, partly because it's pressure that also has an outlet, which is there's a lot of resource to do something at this moment. And in the middle of that, people respond differently to pressure, and they're not necessarily it's gonna be messy. It is messy. So I think we see and can feel some of that. And it's a funky process having a legislative body over here and a city council and then an administration over here, and frankly, that don't see eye to eye. That being said, the other thing that I think is important to note is the city doesn't just get to dictate when they're going to take people off of the WashDOT property. This is a Department of Transportation property. The Department of Transportation actually gets to say whether or not those individuals will stay there. And at this point, WashDOT is connected at the hip to Commerce and to the State Patrol around, yes, ensuring that we can address the camp and we can move those folks into the right options like you heard, but not in a haphazard sort of way. So Alex, if you want to say any more, but I just think that's important. The mayor can say that. What it actually looks like is dependent upon what kinds of opportunities are available for those residents.
Yeah, and let me just add to that really quick. So Commerce and the state has not set any date. We have specifically stayed away from setting a date and saying by this date folks will be moving. That said, in 2 of the 5 counties, not Spokane, but in 2 of the other 4, folks have already been given, it has already started. There have been voluntary acceptances of housing. Don't quote me, but I think it's roughly 100 people so far in those other 2 counties have voluntarily moved into housing that was made available because of Commerce dollars. So it's certainly as soon as the community wants to move forward, and some of these other communities are a little bit ahead of us in that regard, but there is no date from the state, from any of the 3 agencies. And what's more, you can ask Julie Garcia. She'll tell you that WashDOT and the State Patrol have actually been really good about coming to the camp and telling folks in the camp, we're not moving you. There's no imminent closure or anything like that. So I can't speak for anything that the city is saying, but I can just say from the state side that there's no date. That doesn't exist.
All right, Barry is now. Thank you guys so
Can I
much.
say one other quick thing?
Yeah,
It'll be quick.
Yeah.
Yep. You heard Council President Beggs say that he would love to hear more from folks in this community, that they're hearing a lot from a lot of different places. I would just take that to heart, and it's part of what we're really open for as well. Whatever your perspective is, whatever you know specifically in terms of what needs to happen around homelessness, make your voice heard. Now is the moment to do that. So make your voice heard in whatever way you can. Call your council member, go and speak at the council meetings, like just be heard at this moment, because I think we can make a difference.
Thank you so much, Zeke, for your time and what you've done so far with the community. So I appreciate it. Thank you. And Barry is coming up. All right, Barry, take it away.
Anna Martinez from Neighbors in Need, can you come on up? And if there's anybody else that has a brief announcement, we're going to end with just some brief announcements, and Anna is the first one. And if anybody else would like to, just come stand over here.
Good morning. As Barry said, my name is Anna Martinez. I work for Amazon, and I'd just like to talk to you guys for about 2 minutes about Neighbors in Need. So one of the challenges that Amazon faces is its reputation. I'm sure you guys have all heard that there's some really unfavorable things going on in whatever building from whatever person. As a manager at Amazon, I felt like it was my responsibility to let our associates know what benefits were available to them. And this is just kind of a little bit of backstory on how I came up with the idea for Neighbors in Need. So I wanted them to know what was going on, and in talking to them and letting them know what benefits are available, I got curious. I looked into what Amazon was doing in communities. December 2021, a tornado touched down in Edwardsville, Illinois. That day, 90 people were killed, and 6 of which were Amazon associates. As an Amazon employee, it was important to me to find out what Amazon was doing in that community. I discovered that they gave $1 million to the Edwardsville Community Foundation. This got me thinking. I wanted to be involved in our community here. I wanted to get Amazon involved in our community here. I'm a Spokane local CV class of 98, and it's important to me that Amazon is part of this community. So the idea was, what am I gonna do, you know? So I knew I had to do something. I had a coworker come in the very next night, and he was furious. He was so mad because there was a lady that came up to him that was experiencing homelessness when he was at a stoplight and started banging on the hood of his car. He came in absolutely lit up. What he said to me was, we need to just gather them all up and put them in a camp. That's where I got my idea. We need to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. So from there, I decided to do a homeless outreach event, having no idea what I was doing, none. Having no idea the systems that were already in place and the people that support those systems. So first of all, I'd like to say thank you to all of you that work with this every day. I'm new to this. It's overwhelming. It's absolutely overwhelming. So thank you. So Neighbors in Need is a homeless outreach event that's happening this Sunday. The Revival and Cat Spokane are helping us host by lending us their space. We have 21 different organizations that are participating, and just gonna give a quick shout out to them. We have Cat Spokane, we have Chaz, Columbia Sportswear, Goodwill Supportive Services for Veteran Families, Health and Justice Recovery Alliance, Healthcare for Homeless Veterans. Don't want to miss anybody. We have Humana, Jules Helping Hands, Kona Ice, Lilac, Melts Extreme Grilled Cheese, Statewide Health Insurance Benefits Advisors, Spokane AIDS Network, Spokane Regional Health District, The Revival, The Way to Justice, Ware Law, United Way, and Workforce Staffing. I know this isn't an answer for everyone. This event is to make people feel seen and supported, and to share that there are some pathways to stable employment for those who want a hand up. If you know someone who could possibly benefit from this event, please reach out. I know there's a lot of different events going on right now, but there's a lot of people to outreach. So I brought some flyers if anyone's interested. But again, thank you for what you guys do. Thanks.
Give her a round of applause. Yeah. Because Anna really, I mean, she just took it from the ground up. She had no idea about all the stuff we do. I talked to her and I filled her in on some of the stuff, and she's done an amazing job. So if you want to have one of your agencies be part of that, talk to her. If you're out there on the live stream, just email me and I'll connect you with her. Other announcement?
Hi, everybody. My name is Bataya Streeter. I know some of you, others I don't, so good to see you all, and thanks for all that you do. I want to share with you guys that the library is open again. I am the social worker that was hired to do social service management of that library for the city of Spokane. So super, super excited. Very, very first social worker ever hired with the library. So excited, amazed with what's going on and the new things are happening. So a couple of things I'd like to share with you guys. 66 computers for public use that will be available as of Monday. So July 11th, we open for the public. Come down, we'll have food trucks and all that excitement there. Ribbon cutting, I think, at 9 a.m. There's a full list of schedules available, of the schedule available. We will also have technology interns to support folks that are in need of tech help there. So that's super exciting. Starting in September, community court will be available there on Mondays, as well as Eastern Washington University social work students. So we'll have a lot of folks that are there that can come in and seek services there. Essentially, my goal is to build internal structure of social work programs there, as well as be able to provide some connection to resources for folks. Would love to partner with you all if you guys have suggestions on how you see that working. But my hope is to kind of bridge the gap for folks that are needing resources. So July 11th, come see us. If you'd like to partner, please share your card or information with me, and I'd love to be able to support the work that you guys do here.
Thank you. Hey, library. Come on up, Hallie.
Real quick to go off of Amazon's event, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm trying to find the person. Where are they? Are they still in here? I believe there's also haircuts and showers going on that day. Multiple barbers will be there. So it's going to be like a very celebratory event, so really positive and uplifting. So wanted to put that out there. I think it's just a good thing to send folks that direction to have a good experience that day. And then I don't think Brand's in the room anymore. I wanted to give him a shout out, and just, I thought it's about being vulnerable and honest and transparent. He shared about the woman he spoke with at Camp Hope that had experienced sexual assault, and I found myself in tears at my table. 37 years later, after being sexually assaulted while being homeless, I still struggle when I hear a story of another person experiencing that. And I just think it's really important for us all to maintain that awareness. And I know most people here, if not all, really get it, but we're working with people who are truly experiencing trauma and getting through it to the best of their ability. And you know, addiction is a route to soothe trauma for folks, and I think that's really important to keep. And I feel like that's my job to say that, because that's what I do for a living is substance use disorder treatment, and we can have a light shined on us as, oh, they're the solution because everybody has substance use disorder. Not true. And it's all about trauma. So I just wanted to share that, because 37 years later, I'm sitting there having a struggle. It's very real. So I'm looking forward to these opportunities to help these folks move out of this situation and into safety. So thanks for letting me just come up here and throw that at you. That was my healing moment. There we go.
Thank you, Hallie. Anybody else? Any other announcements? I have one last one. Those of you on the live stream, you got to come next month in person and just pass that word for your folks too. Our tech support, give Josh a hand, our tech support. He actually gets to go on vacation next in August, the first week of August. So we're not going to have live stream in August, but we will going forward after that. Thank you all very much. Have a good day.